Hey guys, it's Mo, and today we're going to be talking about some exciting books that are going to be coming out next month for the month of August. I didn't do one of these for the month of July. There just wasn't really a lot of books in general coming out in publishing, and there were really only a few that I was interested in. I had a lot of stuff going on, so I decided to just skip it for the month of July. But anyways, for the books that are coming out in August, there are a few that I wanted to share with you guys. So let's just go ahead and get straight into them. Also, I just want to say, like, with everything going on with the pandemic and just the craziness of this world, I know that there's a chance that some of these books' publishing dates might be changed around. So don't take everything I say as fact because things change on a daily basis. But if I do mention a book, it's bound to be coming out eventually, even if it does get changed and it's not coming out in August. So the first one is called A Map to the Sun by Sun-Sloane Leong. And this one is a graphic novel in the young adult genre. It's following 5 different players who are on a struggling girls basketball team. It's supposed to be a really good book about friendship, so I thought this would be interesting. And I don't really read too many graphic novels, but this one stood out to me. Then next we have a nonfiction book, and this one is called Being Lolita by Allison Wood, and this one is a memoir. We're following Allison when she's 17 years old. She is a senior in high school, and she's definitely very vulnerable. She's a young girl, and she ends up forming this relationship with her English teacher, Mr. North, through a copy of Lolita that he gives to her, and they end up having what turns out to be an abusive relationship. And she's taking back the narrative to explain, you know, things that went on and going through this experience. It just seems like a very hard-hitting nonfiction book to read that's very relevant to a lot of things that have come to light recently about relationships like that, especially with someone taking advantage of someone. Next, we have another nonfiction book. It's called Creating Anna Karenina, Tolstoy and the Birth of Literature's Most Enigmatic Heroine by Bob Blaisdell. I read Anna Karenina maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, if I'm guessing right, and I remember enjoying it, and it was one of like the first really true classics that I read by my own choice that I really did enjoy. And it's something I feel like I would like to reread again in the future, probably not anytime soon because it is such a lengthy book. But this book is all about Anna Karenina as a character. It's looking at Leo Tolstoy specifically through the lens of this novel, which hasn't been done before in a book. So I'm definitely interested to see what this author brings to the table on the subject. Next, we have The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Reed. And this one is a young adult book. It takes place in the 90s. In Los Angeles. We're following Ashley Bennett and her group of friends. It's about to be summer. It's still towards the end of the school year. Everything seems like perfect, right? But then everything changes when 4 officers are acquitted after beating a black man named Rodney King half to death, and suddenly Ashley's not just one of the girls, she's one of the black kids. So it's following the violent protests that take place in LA after this. We're not just following her, but her sister and her friends, I think, as they're going through this experience. And all in all, this is a book that I've been excited for since I first heard about it. I don't really request books anymore on NetGalley just because I'm really terrible at getting around to reading them, but I did request a copy of this book, and I think it went through now. I'll have to double check. But I really want to get to this book next month because not even just because the cover is so great, it just sounds like such an interesting book. The next one we have is The Death of Vivek Ogee by Oji-Akwaeke Emezi. This one takes place in a town in southeastern Nigeria, and it starts off with a mother. She opens the front door to find her son's body, and this is a sad story of struggling to understand a child who, I think she ends up losing the child. I don't know, it sounds like a little bit surrealistic, if that makes sense. I'm not completely sure what this book is about, but it just sounds from the plot summary pretty interesting, and I feel like I'm just doing a terrible job at explaining it, but it did sound really interesting, and I have heard, I think I've heard a few people who've read this already who have been into it. The next 2 books I'm just going to mention very quickly. I already mentioned them in a previous most anticipated video, but they ended up getting pushed back to August, and that's The Girls' Weekend by Jody Gehrman, which is a mystery thriller. It's one of those locked room mysteries, which I definitely do like those. And the other one is also a mystery thriller, and that's The Monsters We Make by Callie White. This one I believe is kind of based off of a true mystery that happened of these two paper boys in a Midwestern town that went missing in the 80s. The next book I want to share with you guys, I started reading the synopsis of it and I just immediately was sucked into it, and I just really am excited for this book. It sounds so good, and it's called Zo by Xander Miller. And this one, it's set in Haiti, and it's following a breathtaking love story, a saga of passion, tenacity, and hope in the face of disaster. So we first meet Zo, or the full name is Zo-Xander, during his childhood in the 1990s in a fishing village on the western tip of Haiti. He's an orphan. He learns how to take care of himself, swimming, fishing, and stuff. He travels the island, and one day he meets Anaya, who's a nursing student, and their attraction is instantaneous, but her father is very protective and ambitious, and he doesn't accept a poor, uneducated man like Zo would be good enough for her. And then something happens. It's the massive earthquake that happened on January 12th, 2010. I don't want to keep reading too much more because I feel like it's giving away too much of what's going to happen in the book, but it just sounds really interesting, and I hope that you guys read it at least, because I know I won't probably get to it for a while, but and just knowing that I'm trash at getting to books in a timely manner, but that just sounded so interesting. I hadn't heard anybody talk about that book before. Then next we have Betty. It's by Tiffany Mcdaniel. We're following the story of Betty Carpenter, and this takes place when she's born in 1954 to a white mother and a Cherokee father. She's the 6th of 8 siblings, and they all live in this rural town in Ohio. There's definitely a lot of poverty and violence that she's having to grow up with. Her family has these dark secrets that are brought to life, and she's having to deal with a lot of hardships and stuff. It's inspired by generations of the author's own family. This sounds just like a really interesting coming-of-age story. Next, we have a mystery thriller, and this one is called The Less Dead by Denise Mina. And what made me interested in this one, it starts off with, she thought she was finding her birth mother, now she's searching for a killer. So we're following Margot. Her adoptive mom has passed away, and she decides that she's going to, while she's newly single, secretly pregnant, and worried about a relationship that her best friend is in that's pretty dangerous, she decides that she's going to search for her birth mother. But instead she finds her aunt, her birth mother's sister, who tells her that her mother was murdered years ago by some serial killer, and the guy's still out there. They never found him, and now she's deciding, you know, if she wants to try to find justice for her mother. But then it seems like the serial killer is still around, because she starts getting threatening letters. Because I think the aunt was getting threatening letters, but now the daughter is too, and she's now in danger because the serial killer might come after her. It sounds like a really interesting thriller, so I would definitely give this one a chance. Next, we have Beowulf, a new translation by Maria Dahvana Headley. I remember having to read some of Beowulf, I think when I was in high school, and so I'm kind of familiar with some of the basic plot points of the story, but not super into it or anything. This is supposedly like a new translation of Beowulf, and it's a radical new verse translation of the epic poem, which brings to light elements that have never before been translated into English, recontextualizing the binary narrative of monsters and heroes into a tale in which the two categories often entwine. Justice is rarely served, and the dragons live among us. So I'd be interested to read this translation of Beowulf. I mean, if I was ever going to read it again, it seems like it would be a good, like, modern, up-to-date translation. Next, we have Dear Girl, and to be honest, this one stood to me because of the cover. I had to see what it was about, and this one is a nonfiction book. It's kind of like in poetry. And it says, Dear Girl is a journey from girlhood to womanhood through poetry. It's the search for truth and silence, the freeing of the tongue. It is deep wounds and deep healing, and the resilience that lies within us. It is a love letter to the sisterhood. So it sounds pretty interesting. I'm not, you guys know, super into poetry, but I would definitely give this one a chance as well. And then the very last book that I'm going to share with you guys is probably one of the ones that I'm actually the most interested in. It's called Sisters by Daisy Johnson, and I just heard of this one, and it just sounds really interesting. So I'm going to read some of the synopsis to you guys, because it just explains it better than I can. So, born just 10 months apart, July and September are thick as thieves, never needing anyone but each other. Now, following a case of school bullying, the teens moved away with their single mother to a long-abandoned family home near the shore. In their new isolated life, July finds that the deep bond she has always shared with September is shifting in ways she can't entirely understand. A creeping sense of dread and unease descends inside the house. Meanwhile, outside, the sisters push boundaries of behavior until a series of shocking encounters test the limits of their shared experience and forces shocking revelations about the girl's past and future. So I thought this sounds really interesting. It's blurred by Celeste Ng, who I love her books as well. And I think what really made me interested in this book is it seemed like it might be kind of really atmospheric and gothic and stuff, because it says there's like this sense of dread and unease throughout the book. So hopefully this one lives up to the hype that I'm putting on it. So those are all the books that are coming out in the month of August that I'm interested in. Let me know if there's any I didn't mention that are coming out next month that you guys are interested in, so we can all check them out. And that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!